G'day, g'day. Today I'm gonna start with talking about geography. In Australia, there are a lot of different biogeographic regions. It is also the smallest continent in the world, but the sixth largest country in the world. The geography of Australia is extremely diverse. There's mountains of snow in the Australian Alps, and then just you travel a couple of miles, and all of a sudden you're in a goddamn jungle. It's truly amazing how different the landscapes are in Australia. For example, up in Queensland, it's extremely tropical, while in Northern Australia, there's a lot of deserts and such. The warmth can range from 20 degrees to about almost 50 degrees, depending on where you are. Now, in the winter, it's about 10 degrees to 30 degrees, once again, depending on where the location is. The region of Australia is in the Oceania. The closest countries are Indonesia, Philippines, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, and the Solomon Islands. The highest point of Australia is Mount Kosciuszko, while the lowest point is Lake Eyre here. The total area of Australia is 7 million square kilometers, including Lord Howe Island and Macquarie Island. The Australian mainland has a total coastline length of 35 kilometers, while the longest river, called Murray River, which is about 2.3 thousand kilometers. Uh, there's a couple of natural hazards, which is about 2 kilometers long. There is a couple of natural hazards such as cyclones along the northern coast, severe thunderstorms, droughts, occasional floods, heat waves, and frequent bushfires. Off the eastern coast of Australia is the world's largest coral reef complex, the Great Barrier Reef. Australia is the lowest, flattest, and oldest continental landmass on the entire Earth, and has a relatively stable geological history. There's 6 states in Australia: Queensland, Victoria, Western Australia, Northern Australia, South Australia, and New South Wales. Uh, that's basically all about the geographic yeah, region of Australia. I'm gonna keep on talking for a while, and I'm gonna be talking about history. The first known landing in Australia by Europeans was by Dutch navigator William Janssen, 1606. 19 other Dutch navigators explored the west-south coast in the 18th century and called the continent the New Holland continent. In 1770, Lieutenant James Cook surveyed Australia's east coast for Britain and returned with accounts favoring colonization at Botany Bay, now in Sydney, while it used to be now in Sydney, New South Wales. The native Australians are called Aboriginals and have the longest living traditions that are over 70,000 years old. Australia has been in the First World War and the Second World War. Uh, while in both of the World Wars they fought for Britain. During the first, Australia fought with Britain, uh, all while actually being attacked by the Japanese in Australia. Since all the highest military men had been sent to Britain and Turkey and stuff because they were fighting in Turkey, uh, they actually just had farmers, women, some children, and elderly to protect Australia. Instead of that, and had to protect Australia. Instead of that, yeah, they had to protect Australia. This elders, farmers, the ones that had to stay in Australia to keep the land going. And that is one of the many reasons I actually hate British people, because they screwed us over for about 100 years. Oh shit, oh shit. But hey, we got a cool story at least. The Aboriginals have been robbed by British for 300 years, and to a point, still getting mistreated. Now it's getting lower by these days, but they are fairly still being mistreated. I would say so. Thank you so much. This was my part. Now, uh, Abshi's gonna speak. I mean Akam. Akam's gonna speak.
As you heard from Benjamin, Akim is gonna speak now, and I'm gonna talk about religion. The most common religion in Australia is Christianity. 52.2% of the people of Australia are Christians, and 2.6 of the people of Australia are Muslims. 2.4% of Buddhism, 1.9% Hinduism, and 9.1% are unclear. Christianity came to Australia with the first British settlers on the first fleet of the convicts and settlers. Most were Catholics and Anglicans, and a number of them Methodists. The first fleet brought tensions to Australia, fueled by historical grievances between Catholics and other Christians, tensions that would continue into the 20th century. The first chaplain, Richard Johnson, a Church of England cleric, was charged by Governor Arthur Phillip with improving public mortality in the colony, but he was also heavily involved in health and education. Christian leaders have remained prominent in health and education in Australia ever since, with over a fifth of students attending church schools at the beginning of the 21st century, and a number of the nation's hospitals, care facilities, and charities having been founded by Christian organizations. There were at least 15 Jews in the First Fleet, 14 convicts, and Tolpuddle martyrs were sentenced to penal transportation to Australia because friendly societies had strong elements of what are now considered to be the predominant role of trade unions. Before 1901, some Muslim sailors and prisoners came to Australia on convict ships. Afghan cameleers, for example, settled in Australia from the 1860s onwards, a couple of them being Sikh. From the 1870s, Malay drivers were recruited, with most subsequently repatriated. In 1901, the government passed an act limiting immigration to those of European descent in what came to be known as the White Australia Policy, by effectively limiting the immigration of practitioners of different faiths. This policy ensured that Christianity remained the religion of the overwhelming majority of Australians for the foreseeable future, and indeed to the present day. The first census in 1911, no, okay, 1911, showed 96% identified themselves as Christians. The tensions that came with the First Fleet continued into the 1960s. And now Abshir is going to talk.
And I am going to speak about economy in Australia. The economy is pretty good in Australia. Australia studies the world's largest national economy. The Australia is the four largest regional ranking in the world, and then is New Zealand. Australia is one of the wealthiest countries in Asia when it comes to economy and product. Australian is international competitor. Australia Australia is international competitively and thought